Indians in revenge of the rain gods.
I've always been fascinated by the Maya. 1,000 years ago, these mountains and jungles in Central America were home to their extraordinary civilization. Then mysteriously they deserted their great cities and seemingly vanished. It's a 4-day ride from the lowlands up into the mountains of Chiapas, home of the Highland Maya. In 1524, the Spanish conquered the people of this area and founded the old colonial town of San Cristobal Las Casas. Nabalom, where I'd arranged to stay, is the home of a Swiss anthropologist, Trudy Blom, who came here nearly 50 years ago. Oh, it's great. One of Trudy's students showed me in. People come from all over the world to study at Nabalom and help Trudy with her work.
Can you manage? I can't believe how much luggage you have.
It's great to stay in a beautiful place like this. Usually I end up in bordellos and doss houses or in my little tent. From this old colonial house, Trudy and her helpers have long campaigned on behalf of the Maya. What does that mean?
Well, it's the name of the village, one of the local Indian villages. And the room is decorated with photographs of the Indians.
Wow, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I hope you enjoy it. And I'll show you the bathroom. There's hot water, your bath, glasses, anything you need, just let us know.
Is there time for a bath before dinner?
Oh, sure, yes, but 7 sharp, remember. Trudy's pretty adamant about it.
Trudy, though 89, is still very much in charge and is treated with great deference.
But she served herself a huge portion.
Amongst the dinner guests were some Lacandones. I asked Trudy why they were staying here.
Because they come visiting, buying, they know me. I am there welcome too. So they have a roof here and food. They came to some sickness to cure. They go to the clinic.
And when did you come here?
43 the first time, for a few weeks. I came on a horse on this day, from the coast. There was no road in Chiapas, no road.
I imagine Trudy, nearly half a century ago, riding up through the Chamula highlands to San Cristobal, as I had done yesterday. I had found the Chamula Maya rather reserved. I felt I was an intruder, that perhaps I shouldn't be here. While staying at Trudy's, I'd asked Barry Norris, who knew the Chamulans well and spoke their language, to tell me about them.
The Chamulas are a Highland Maya Indian group. I guess you could say they're a tribe. They're the descendants of the ancient Maya. Of course, they're a conquered people, and they are very much in the process of taking control over their own future again. Whenever somebody like yourself, who's really clearly identifiable as someone from far away, is passing through, people are a little bit shy. They don't have much of an idea of why it would be that you'd want to ride through their land. In 1528, Chamula was conquered by the invading Spanish conquistadores. They were then placed in a position of subservience, and that whole colonial system perpetuated itself right up into modern time. Indian groups were tied to specific areas of land and were forced to labor on those lands as if they were slaves. 30 years ago, an Indian person would have been knocked off the sidewalk if they dared to act like somebody who was above them in the social structure. One thing that's really striking in the last 25 years or so is the process in Mexico of change and evolution and accepting of Indian people. I think that it would be wonderful for you to have the opportunity, after having seen Chiapas and the Highland Indians here, to see the Highland Maya of Guatemala. In fact, I think it's a necessary thing for you to do.
Before moving on to Guatemala, I wanted to spend a day looking round San Cristobal, Las Casas. By the old cathedral in the main square, I came across a protest demonstration.
Por favor, señor. ¿Por qué están ustedes aquí?
Es que nosotros
They
fuimos
said they'd been
desalentados
evicted from their land.
de nuestras comunidades.
¿Dónde?
They were Maya from one of the Highland villages.
De 4 comunidades.
See, they'd been camped here for 15 days trying to get their homes back.
Municipio de Cocingo.
They'd just heard that the government had offered to buy their land back for them. It seemed to be a sign of better times for the Maya. It was now May, and the summer rains were threatening. It was time to be moving on in quest of the Maya in the Guatemalan highlands. My route would take me up through the mountains to Todos Santos, and then east to central Guatemala. Over half the people of Guatemala are Maya. They mostly live in these mountains. My presence was quickly noted by an armed civil patrol.
Hola, buenos días, señores.
Since the recent civil war, villagers have been forced to enroll in these civil patrols, or risk being thought in sympathy with the guerrillas and shot.
Me voy a Todos Santos. ¿Cuántos kilómetros a Todos Santos, por favor?
Como unos 8 kilómetros.
Gracias, señor. Muy amable. Adiós.
The trail to Todos Santos, where I hoped to stay with the Maya family, was to be a long, hard climb. Todos Santos is a valley 7,000 feet up in the Cuchimatanes Mountains. Santiago Mendoza and her family live in the town of Todos Santos. I'd written to Santiago on the advice of a friend who knew the village, saying I wanted to stay with the Highland Maya family, to get to know how they live. Santiago made me welcome. She cleared a place for my tent and horses in front of the house.
Eso. Qué buena. Está mirando.
The family pig is also the household dustbin.
Mira, huele la da. Ven. Venga. Ojo.
Almost all the families in the area are smallholders, growing maize and vegetables and keeping a few animals. Weaving offers the villagers one of the few ways of earning money for buying things they can't make, such as medicines. Essential, for Santiago's brother Juan has cancer and needs money for his treatments. The people of Todos Santos, like those of many other isolated villages, have retained their traditional dress and customs because of their remoteness. Over the years, few outsiders have come here or wanted to. These people have been dismissed by those of European descent who run the country as backward and uneducated. Santiago is very anxious that her children do well in school. Many children will have to find work outside the valley. There is not enough land here to provide work or food for everyone. Many of the men are away looking for work on the plantations in the lowlands. Santiago's husband is working away from the village. Santiago has had to hire a villager to work on the family milpa, the maize field. In Guatemala, most of the land is owned by only a few people. It was one of the many causes of resentment that led to the recent civil war. Santiago told me about what happened in Todos Santos during the war.
Cuando fue el 82, ese fue el guerrilla que muy fuerte, no solo aquí en Todos Santos, fue en territorio de Guatemala, en todas partes. Entonces, cuando vinieron algunas personas a aconsejar a la gente y ellos oyeron, pero los soldados ejércitos de Guatemala, vinieron ellos, ¡oh! ¿Por qué oye esta palabra? No es bueno, déjelo. Y algunos otros que cuando ellos tienen cólera y lo mataron algunos. Entonces la gente oyeron, oh, no es bueno. Entonces el 82 fue, en este día, muchas gentes murieron, no solo aquí, tal vez todo en Guatemala. Aquí en Todos Santos hay muchos huérfanos. Hay unos niños se quedaron sin papá. Algunos niños se quedaron sin mamá.
I had heard that 150 people had died at Todos Santos. It partly explained the large number of children at supper in Santiago's house. I've grown very fond of the family during my short stay in Todos Santos. Bueno, potatoes, maize bread, beans and rice were served for a special supper on my last night with the family.
Muchas gracias. Muy rica, mucho trabajo.
I'd travelled a long way. I'd not only found the Maya, but here, with Santiago's family, I had for a short while become part of their world.
Estás en un grave peligro.
One of their prized possessions was a television. Despite their remoteness, the people of Todos Santos were well aware of what was going on in the rest of the world.
Es mi modelo. Sí. ¿Por qué hiciste un dibujo de mi modelo? Lo hice. Lo dibujé el año pasado.
The next day, I continued my journey east towards the land of the Quiche, the largest of the highland Maya groups. I wanted to find out more of their story since the coming of the Spanish. Part of the magic of camping is waking up in the morning, having put up my tent in the dark, and seeing for the first time just where in the world I have arrived. Chichicastenango is the largest town of the Quiché. On market day, it's like an open-air Aladdin's cave. The arrival of the Spanish here 500 years ago marked the beginning of a fearful time for the Quiché. Each year, they reenact the coming of the conquistadores. The Spanish friar, Las Casas, witnessed what happened here in 1524. Here, their devastations exceeded all that went before, he wrote. So many were the slaughters, violences, injuries, butcheries, and beastly desolations that they perpetrated as must strike horror into future ages. They wasted all before them with fire and sword. They minded nothing else all the way they went but slaughters, rapings, and burnings. Of this I was many times witness. How many tears did they provoke? Asked Las Casas. How many sighs? How many children did they deprive of parents? How many men of their wives? In 15 years they massacred no less than 5 millions of men. On the steps of the church in Chichicastenango, Maya priests come to offer prayers to their ancestors. Maya libraries were destroyed by the Spanish as works of the devil. But one holy Maya book, the Popol Vuh, was found here, hidden behind the altar. It tells of how the earth and the sky were formed by the Creator and Maker, the mother and father of life. The divine mind watches over the happiness of people and is permanently present in the goodness given to human beings and in everything existing in the sky, on the earth, and on the sea. From Chichicastenango I rode north to see the ruins of Atatlan, the once great city of the Quiché Maya. This whole fertile region was once dominated by the bustling city of Atatlan. Today, a lone Quiché Maya called Apolinario guards the place where the Quiché nation disappeared upon the swords of the conquistadores. Once again, Fra Las Casas witnessed and dared to write about what happened. But when it was proved they had no gold, it was commanded that all be burnt alive. They killed all ages and sexes. Women big with child were gored through with stakes. Others were cast to the dogs. They made a wilderness of one of the most fertile and populous countries in these parts. A tunnel, an entrance to the underworld, runs deep into the earth beneath the ruined city. Maya people from all over highland Guatemala come here in memory of the Quiché kings and to pray to their gods. Atatlan has been gone for 400 years, but here the soul of the Quiché still lives on.
Pedro Alvarate, como mangas, rei Quiché, chiste que tachnafik, Dios pak, na taklot if, kamal we kachilal, kamal we.
The heritage of the conquest in Guatemala has spawned a history of rebellion and repression down the centuries. In the early 80s, there was violence throughout Guatemala. Over 400 Maya villages were destroyed. It's said that more than 100,000 fled as refugees to Mexico. Reputedly, one of the areas worst affected by the violence was a remote mountainous region to the north of Atitlan, known as the Ixil Triangle. The valley is home of the Ixil Maya, one of the smallest and most ancient Maya groups. The largest of the three towns in the region is Nabah. It was market day. Here was little apparent evidence of the fightings that had racked Nabah in the early 80s. Then the region was referred to as the killing fields of Guatemala, and the Ixil were said to have been almost wiped out as a cultural group. In a side street, I came across a courtyard full of weavers. It was part of an aid project, providing work for villagers who'd lost everything in the violence. The project was started by an Englishman, Mike Shawcross.
The aid program was started up here because a very good friend of mine, in fact, died up here some years ago, and I came up here in 85 and 86 looking for him, and I saw that up here there were people in great need and not much help getting up here because it's out of the way, it's difficult to get to. It's, you know, you get to Nabah and then have to walk to the villages. In the late 70s and early 80s, a lot of people were killed. The army was chasing guerrillas around this area, and since anybody living in those villages had to be a supporter of the guerrillas, they burnt those villages down, and then the people fled into the mountains. Some of them were in the mountains for 7 years. What we're trying to do is bring the people back to the level they were at before the violence. And we only do what the people ask us to do. People come here and say, could you help us put in a potable water system, build a school, employ a teacher, and we also go and set up vegetable gardens in the different villages.
Las Violetas outside Nabah was originally a squatters' camp for people who come down from the mountains. They were all terribly poor, having lost everything, Mike explained. People have settled here now, many being widows and orphans. In the middle of Las Violetas is a feeding centre for children. Mike has dedicated his life to the Maya. They are such resilient people. I like this area. I like these people, he told me. They can be smiling and pleasant, having to rebuild their lives completely from scratch. They are just amazing people. They are the real survivors. Up in the hills above Nabah, the rain gods of the Maya had returned to replenish the land. I'd reached the end of my 1,000-mile journey. I'd come looking for the Maya of the past. I'd found a living people. I'd been moved and inspired by their courage and kindness. I can only hope that the future will bring the peace and happiness the Maya have so long been denied.